So I remember the first day I ever dropped my son off at daycare. And before we even got there, the whole morning was so rushed and chaotic. Trying to get him fed and dressed, trying to get myself ready, and packing his little dinosaur backpack with some spare clothes. And he was just learning how to walk, but he was, still a little bit wobbly. But when it was time to say goodbye, I handed him to his teacher, but he reached for me, crying, as the teacher closed the door. But I just smiled until the latch clicked shut. And then I walked to my car, shut the door, and broke. And it was the kind of crying that just takes your breath away and folds you in half. And I remember gripping the steering wheel and whispering to myself, what kind of mother just leaves her baby and goes to work like nothing just happened? But eventually, I got to work, straightened my blouse, and wiped my face. I smiled, I logged in, and I pretended. Because that's what people do, right? We show up, and we just get through it. But that day, I wasn't just learning how hard it is to leave your child. I was learning something much bigger. That someone, somewhere, had decided how much of myself I was allowed to bring to work. And I had agreed to it. Without even realizing it, I had agreed that the version of me who was gutted from leaving her baby, that version wasn't professional, wasn't appropriate, wasn't even allowed in the building. See, I had agreed that my job was to show up as if the most significant part of my life, being a mother, could just be neatly compartmentalized and left in the parking lot. And for a long time, I didn't even question that. But that morning exposed a lie that a lot of us are living inside. This idea that you can just neatly contain your humanity, that you can bring only the acceptable parts of yourself to work, the calm parts, the productive parts, the uninterrupted parts, and leave the rest somewhere else. But life doesn't work that way. Life doesn't just wait politely outside the door while you go to work. No, because work might have hours, but life does not. And what so many of us are actually doing, and what I was doing, is much simpler and heavier than we admit. See, we are pretending that large parts of our lives don't exist during work hours. Pretending we're not caregivers, not managing illness, not carrying anxiety or stress or grief with us, as if all those things can just politely pause for work. And in a recent survey of working mothers, 77% said they feel pressure to show up at work as if they don't have children at all, to try to keep parenting invisible and act as if nothing else depends on them during the day. But parenthood didn't create this tension. It just makes it impossible to ignore. Because now there are two places that need your attention at once, and there's no amount of professionalism that can make that go away. But the question isn't who decides how you show up. The real question is, when you show up, who decides how much of you you're allowed to be? And here's what I realized. I had been letting someone else decide. I had been letting some invisible standard, some vague idea of professionalism dictate which parts of me were acceptable and which parts needed to stay hidden. But the moment that we stop pretending and acknowledge what's actually happening, we gain the power to reshape it and to decide how we want to show up, to decide which parts of ourselves we bring into the room and which parts we refuse to leave behind. And that power belongs to every single one of you, including students, because the culture that you step into later is shaped by what you normalize now. And we talk about culture like it's someone else's job, right? Like it's written in an employee handbook somewhere or decided in an annual planning meeting. But culture is created and reinforced every single day by what we tolerate, what we excuse, and what we accept as just the way things are. And whether you're a manager or not, your actions are teaching everyone around you what's normal and what's acceptable. So if you want a better workplace, a better team, and a better future, it starts with what you practice every single day, not what you wait for permission to change. So the following rules are 3 standards that we should set for ourselves and each other that answer the question, this is how human we are allowed to be here. Now, the first rule is say the honest thing even when it feels uncomfortable. Nothing isolates us faster than pretending we're fine. And when I went back to work after maternity leave, I'm fine became my default answer anytime someone asked how I was doing, even when I was barely holding myself together and crying in between meetings. I thought that silence kept me safe, that if I just didn't talk about it, no one would notice that I was struggling. But here's what actually happened. I felt completely alone. I felt like I was the only one who couldn't handle it, like everyone else had figured out how to juggle work and motherhood seamlessly while I was failing. And then one day, I overheard someone else say that they were having a hard time. And suddenly, I didn't feel so alone anymore. Now, honesty doesn't erase the pressures of work and life, right? It doesn't fix everything, but it closes the gap between the life you're living and the face you're showing everyone else. So be honest. Start small. Start with one honest sentence, like today's harder than usual, or I'm overwhelmed right now, and I just need a couple minutes to reset. And when someone else speaks their truth, don't rush to fix it. Just listen. Harvard research shows that acknowledging someone's emotional reality deepens trust and collaboration more than just offering solutions. But we don't need research to know that, right? We know how good it feels when someone finally sees what we've been holding or carrying in. Now, the second rule is protect what matters to you. We can't control everything, right? But we can protect one thing. And for me, it was dinner and bedtime with my family. But before I actually protected it, here's what it looked like. It's 5:30 p.m. and my husband and I are trying to cook dinner together. But I have my laptop open on the countertop because I said I just needed to check something. And I have our 2-year-old son pulling on my leg here and our baby girl in her high chair, and I'm spoon feeding her baby food. And an email comes through saying, can you hop on a call real quick? And I did it. I got on the call and I had to mute myself every time one of my kids squealed and pretend that I was fully present because I thought that's what commitment looked like. But here's what I was really teaching everyone. I was teaching my boss that I had no real boundaries. I was teaching my kids that my work comes first. And I was teaching myself that my time with them wasn't as important as being seen as dedicated at work. So I decided to protect it. And dinner and bedtime became my non-negotiable that I never wanted to miss because of work. And when I protected it, something shifted and I felt less like life was happening at me and more like I finally had one hand on the wheel in control again. Now, your anchor may be different. Maybe it's a morning walk or workout before the day starts. Or maybe it's a weekly catch-up with a friend. Or maybe it is school pickups and drop-offs for your kid. The point isn't what it is. It's that you pick what matters and you protect it. And then say clearly that I'm not available before 9 because I have school drop-offs. And you don't need to apologize for that either, because boundaries are just information. But what most people underestimate about boundaries is that your boundaries teach others that they can set theirs too. Every time that you say, I can't right now, you make it safer for someone else to say it the next time. And even research from the American Psychological Association shows that employees who feel supported in protecting their personal priorities experience lower burnout and nearly double the job satisfaction. But beyond that research, protecting what matters most to you is a way to stay grounded when sometimes there's so much going on in life you'll feel like you're being pulled in 10 different directions. Now, the third and final rule is choose compassion in the small moments. Of all 3 rules, this one might matter the most, because the opposite of pretending parts of yourself don't exist is being seen. And when I went back to work after my second maternity leave, again, I spent weeks, probably months, pretending that I was fine. And then one day I was in a meeting with my team, and one of my teammates looked at me and said, "How are you really doing?" And I felt this huge wave of relief. Relief that I didn't have to pretend anymore for a moment, that I could admit it was hard to hold work and motherhood at the same time, that my brain was stretched thin trying to track deadlines and diapers and dinner and project deliverables and whether we had enough milk at home that night. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I had to hide that part of myself, because we were all walking around carrying things that no one sees. So here's what compassion looks like in real life. If someone says their kid was up all night, don't brush it off. Say, that sounds exhausting. If someone looks off, ask, are you okay? And if someone shares something hard that they're going through, don't just rush past it to get back to work. Small acknowledgments send a powerful message that you matter here. Not just what you produce, but you. And again, Harvard research shows that teams that practice compassion see stronger innovation, higher retention, and better morale. But choosing compassion also requires something uncomfortable: noticing. And noticing means slowing down. It means making space for someone to say, actually, I'm not okay. And most workplaces aren't built for that yet. Most workplaces have been optimized for productivity, efficiency, and output, not for humans with complicated lives. So choosing compassion isn't passive. And it's not just saying something nice when it's convenient to you. It's actively creating space for people to be human, even when it's inconvenient and even when it slows things down. So, we can't stop life from showing up in the places that we work, learn, and lead. And we shouldn't try. The idea that we were supposed to leave parts of ourselves behind was never realistic to begin with. What is real, though, is the pressure to act like we're fine and to move on as if nothing else matters. But we don't have to do that anymore. We can tell the truth, one honest sentence at a time. We can protect what matters most, and we can lead with compassion, especially when it might be easier to look the other way. Because the norms, the behaviors, the standards that you accept become the culture you live inside. And when we stop wasting energy trying to keep half of ourselves outside the room, we get to decide what we bring in and what we refuse to leave behind. So here's my questions for you. How often do you hide a piece of yourself? And what would happen if you chose differently? And if more of us did that, what kind of culture would we create? Thank you.